Hi, this is Doug DeVitri with CoTrackPro podcast. Now, if high conflict divorce is something that you are experiencing or you think it's going to head this way, I am really eager to talk to Stacey Mendelson. She is she is an attorney. She works as a divorce coach, and she's going to share some ideas to be able to help you if you're approaching this situation. Hi, Stacey. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Now, tell me a little bit about kind of the situations when people call you first.
Sure.
What is that experience like? Because it can just be just about anything.
Okay. So I work in a very specific type niche. If you are my client, you are not in a good place. You are probably being dragged through the family court system. Clients tend to call me in one of two times, either when they're afraid to leave a marriage because they know that staying in the marriage seems safer than actually leaving the marriage, or they're going to call me often when something's gone wrong in family court, when they've had a loss or things didn't work out the way that they expected. That's when I tend to hear from people. So I would say that most of my cases are in family court.
Yeah, and when somebody's in, let's say, an abusive relationship and they're trying to escape, it can be extremely intimidating because of how things can play out. Maybe you can describe to me some of the situations where people kind of get themselves into where it really causes this escalation to this type of representation and help.
Sure. Um, it is quite frequent that a client will call me and they are separated but living under one roof. All of my clients really want the same thing. They all want safe physical separation. They want unscathed kids, and they want a fair financial settlement. And all of those things could happen if we have two normal, healthy, willing parents. In my cases, my clients know that's not going to happen. They are up against a huge obstruction, and that is their ex. Their ex is going to behave in a way that will be like hurling grenades at them the whole time. So they want to mitigate the damage to the children, keep everybody safe, and come out with a fair settlement.
Yeah, and what are some of those types of grenades to be able to prepare for? It seems so dangerous, right? Like this is life and death.
It it feels that way to my clients. My clients feel like their houses are on fire. And most of them will have tried to stay married as long as possible because they know deep down inside of them that divorcing this person is actually going to be more difficult than staying married to this person. So, in many of my cases, either their spouse or ex-spouse was removed due to a criminal altercation, or there's been infidelity. Like there's been a straw that has broken the camel's back in the
Yeah.
cases that I deal with. Now, you asked me what kind of grenades are they going to hurl at them? It generally starts with threats to ruin your life and take away the children. So it's what I call intimidation threats. And if you are in an abusive relationship and you're a disempowered, let's say, woman, those things are very scary. Now, once you become my client, you're going to learn that threats and intimidation, we just let those words drop to the ground. They're actually not a big deal. But my clients are all very scared about child welfare and poverty. And their ex or their soon to be ex knows exactly where to hit them with grenades, threaten them to cut off money, and threaten to take the kids away from them.
My gosh. It seems like you really need to have some sort of defense for what would seem to be just like a peaceful release and going about your way.
Well, that's right. What should be a peaceful parting often is not, especially if one of the parties really doesn't want it to end. And a typical scenario that I see is separated parties living under one roof. Usually it's the woman who's my client. That's just the way it goes. And they have an ex-husband that comes and goes as he pleases. So he actually doesn't want anything to change. He loves the situation. Living under one house, We don't have to split the finances so that they support two houses. And he can come and go as he pleases. The refrigerator's always full of food. There's always childcare available. It's like having a full-time nanny. And that is often the situation that I see people in.
Wow. And I guess it could be super overwhelming, especially when if you have worked or you haven't worked, right? I know COVID had a lot to do with it and managing job schedules and education schedules. What are some of the ways they can best manage? Well, two things. I guess number one would be documentation, right, of certain incidents, and then also two, mental health, right, to be able to
Right.
prepare yourself in that
I
manner.
mean, the longer that you stay unsettled in the situation, there are lots of deleterious effects to it. For one thing, you are raising your kids in a war zone, and that has effects on children. I see kids that get anorexia, have self-harming behavior. That's what happens when you live for years under one roof, separated, and there's hostility in the air. It doesn't serve anybody. So, what can these people do? Well, they don't have to sit hostage. There is relief that they can get, but usually they require some judicial relief. And that is what most women are reluctant to do. They're reluctant to use the court system to try to move their case forward. They're just hoping and praying that their ex will become reasonable and come to the table. But why would they? They love the situation. They've got a nanny at home, like it's great for them. So what can a client do? One of the things they need to do is amass a war chest. You will need some funds. This is a time that you need to either draw on the line of credit from your that you may have in the matrimonial home. You can draw on funds from family. This is a time to amass a war chest for sure. Living under one roof is a very unique situation. You have access to documents, to bank accounts, to financial information that you might not otherwise have. So I highly recommend documenting all of that, especially before you broach the idea of a separation. That's a wonderful, unique time. And you need to have a plan. You have to have a planned escape route from the situation that keeps everybody safe.
Wow. So maybe what are some of the steps in the process that are involved with that?
Well, I'm going to tell you about a client. I think that's the best way to
Great.
tell a story. I had a lovely client, and I'm going to call her Michelle because that's not her real name. And Michelle reached out to me. She had started a new business. She was actually doing freight forwarding. Unusual, right, for a woman? And her business at the time was worth about $300,000. She had two kids. They were 17 and 19. So she was out of the custody battle age. She had wanted to leave her husband for a long, long time. It was a highly abusive marriage. But she called me, I don't know, maybe I still love him, I'm not sure. And then I really realized the real problem. I said, if money wasn't an issue, Michelle, would you stay in this marriage? Absolutely not. Okay, well, we know the kids are not an issue. So now we're talking about $300,000 that's in your business. It's true, you're going to have to split that with him. So we can either do that now, or we can wait a year or two from now when it'll be about $3 million and you can split that with him. I'm good either way. I'm going to be here. You get to decide. Well, she knew then she wasn't staying in this, like waiting was not going to help her.
Yeah.
And as we spoke, I realized she was actually afraid to have the conversation with him. When I have somebody who's afraid to talk about things with their spouse, I'm suspicious maybe there's a safety issue. And there was a safety issue. I found out through a bit of probing, he had pushed her, he had shoved her, he had pushed her down the stairs. He was not the nicest to her. It was nasty. And so we decided, let's get all of our ducks in a row in advance. We're going to get you a lawyer. We're gonna file the papers in court that we need. We're gonna just march right to court. We're gonna rent you a space. We're gonna outfit that space, and then we're gonna escape. We're gonna take the Tesla and we're gonna take the dog and we're going to the new townhouse. And that's exactly what she did. On the day that she did that, the lawyer sent a letter saying that there was a separation happening. And guess what the opposing counsel did? His lawyer did once he lawyered up. She said, was there a safety issue here? Because that is typical of a safety issue. So everybody knew that my client did not feel safe. I'm proud to say that Michelle had one of the fastest divorces in any of my cases because she came out swinging. She didn't stand around and wait to be intimidated and pushed around by a bully. And of course, it went right to mediation and they settled, and she gave him half of her business, and it was no big deal.
And then it stopped.
Done.
Well,
Done.
so that's the question, right? Because so much of the conflict comes from post-divorce, especially in these situations where someone is has exerted coercive control over a long period of time. So, what are some of the boundaries then, let's say post-divorce, doesn't keep you come going back, right? It's kind of a preventative measure.
Yes. Um, I prefer for my clients not to speak with, I'm dealing with files that have the potential of becoming criminal. They're very dangerous in general. So my preference is that there's not communication. So many of the people who come to me think if I don't, he'll retaliate. That is a very common thought error. To which I say, guess what? He'll retaliate either way. As soon as you want something that is not within what he wants to do, he's going to retaliate. So let's make peace with that and not
Yeah.
make that a problem at all. These are just words that a flailing person will say. A person who's had the rug pulled out from under them is going to do stuff. They're going to hurl some grenades, and it doesn't really have to be a problem for us. We don't have to respond to it. We can think, of course, he's hurling a grenade. He's upset. I get it. I'd be upset if I lost me.
Yeah.
So it's a mindset, but also you're right, having boundaries. So we're not going to communicate. If we do any communication, it's strictly about logistics for the children, and it's strictly on a court-approved platform going forward.
Yeah, that's really great. Any tips you have on getting prepared for court, right? Because just being inside the building can be traumatic for a lot of people, especially if it's, their first time.
Yes, court is going to be anxiety provoking. I can't fix that. But the one thing that does help fear a lot is skill. Your preparedness really does overcome fear. Like, a few years ago, I might have been afraid to come on a podcast. I'm not afraid to. I'm prepared. I'm skilled at it now, right? So skill will overcome fear. The more prepared you are to go to court, the better. What is my most important tip about court? Position. Nothing will lose more in court than taking a stupid position. Understand the climate of family court the way it is. Right now, on this date, having this conversation, family court culture is a very 50-50 parenting culture. So if you want something different than shared parenting, and if you're listening to this, you probably do, you better have excellent facts to support your reasons for that. And those facts must be in service to the children, not in service to you, not because you've always been the primary parent. That is not the fact that's going to get you more than 50% parenting. Position matters. More when I look at why people have a loss in court, when they come to me after a loss in court, the first thing I do is post-mortem. I want to know, why did they lose? Everybody thinks it's the judge. It is sometimes the judge. That happens. But more often than not, it's taking an unwinning position in court. That's what matters.
Mm.
That's the work I do with clients, because if we're going to court, we're winning. I don't help clients go to court without a winning position. Otherwise, forget about it. It's stupid. The only reason you would go to court with a position that you're not sure will win is if, even if you lost, you're glad you played, like a safety issue. For example, a client whose ex does cocaine or drinks too much, and you want some sort of drug or alcohol monitoring in place, and you're having, you don't win that motion. Okay, but I'm glad I took it anyways because I'm going to do everything I can to keep these kids safe.
Yeah. Wow, that's really powerful.
Hmm.
Getting these facts organized can be a huge challenge, especially because we have all different ways of communicating, right? We have email, we have text, we have phone calls, we have pictures, we have screenshots, and it seems like anybody can capture anything, or even position it in a way that might not necessarily be true. How do you organize your facts in a digital age now to where it's easy, convenient, and court friendly too?
It has to be court friendly. It has to be digestible. Like I always like to think that any court professional, be it a judge, a GAL, a mediator, anybody, a therapist, I like to think of them as being a bit lazy and a bit obtuse. So my facts need to serve that. It has to be done in a digestible way. I love spreadsheets and charts. That's what I use for my clients. I use them for things like addiction history. I'll
Hmm.
use them for um, access records, like what's been happening. For example, right now I have a client whose ex wants 50% parenting time. Not that he's ever parented, not that he even has the time for it, but because he wants to pay a reduced amount of child support. Okay, so we've started on a schedule, and I have a simple access chart where she just has to check box to see if he's actually exercised his access. He's now had 10 days of access since we started, and he's exercised 3 of those 10 days. So that when he goes to court and says, I want 50%. I don't know why I don't have 50%. We're like, okay, well, that's nice, but clearly he's not available to take 50% because
Yeah.
this is how the last 3 months went.
Gosh, it seems like there's a lot of different games that could be played.
That's a great way of putting it. I like to think of divorce coaching like athletic coaching. Like the way Serena Williams goes to the US Open, she's going with a coach to make sure she wins. People going
Yeah.
into family court are also playing in an arena that is so particular and quite counterintuitive. This particular arena, family court, can make a protective parent look crazy. So, having a coach, just like Serena Williams does,
Yeah.
to tell you when to use your forehand and when to use a drop shot is what you actually need if you want to win in this arena.
It's so crazy. You're absolutely right. Some of the infographics that we've made for CoTrack Pro, it's like, oh my gosh, they wouldn't even know that was even possible before,
Right.
right? In terms of the games or the manipulative tactics that can be used. You know, I read a statistic somewhere that says 50% of children will experience divorce in their lifetime, right? And
Yeah.
we also have many people who are going pro se in court because they just
Yeah.
can't afford it. And it seems like just you're affording attorneys fees for it is like a luxury service. You know, what do you say to the parents who just don't have, there's like nothing left to take?
I first of all, give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Okay. Educate yourself on the arena in which you play. You don't have to have an attorney to play well in this arena. I've had lots of self-representing litigants, but you do have to be a smart stealth litigant to win. Doesn't mean you have to have an attorney or a lawyer. So that's the most important thing. I do think coaching is your quickest way to become educated at this, and not make missteps in an arena that is truly designed to make especially protective mothers look crazy and
Yeah.
chaotic.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing. Any other resources you might recommend? Maybe you host some sort of workshop or you have some guides that would be useful to some of our listeners.
I do. On my website, which is Lifeline Coaching, um, I have 2 master classes that I think are really helpful. And I do have a do-it-yourself divorce toolkit for somebody who doesn't have the money for regular coaching and is a do-it-yourselfer. It will teach you absolutely all the skills that I teach all of my clients on how to manage court, manage your documentation,
Yeah.
manage your co-parenting, manage your strategic communication.
Wow, that's really good. There's just so much to learn, and you really need to be able to take it in piece by piece. Otherwise, it can get super overwhelming. What would be one thing, if there's one thing for somebody to do right now, if they're experiencing some sort of difficult situation, what would you recommend that they do first?
I would, this is where I see most women go wrong. Women talk to third party professionals, police, child protective services, a GAL. They talk to them expecting they're going to fix it and that they're going to understand things, and they won't. You need to get prepared. Get coached before you speak to the police, before you speak to a GAL. Like invest in that 1 hour and it'll make all the difference for you in how you come out as the more compelling party.
Yeah, really good. Well, Stacey Mendelson, thank you so much for being a part of the CoTrack Pro podcast. It was lifelinecoaching.ca, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the,
All right. Well, thank you again. And we look forward to staying in touch more in the future.
thanks for having me. Take care.